Hello and welcome to Wingin It. So this is a post-game review from a tournament game I played recently, where I started with my favourite bird in the game, the Indigo Bunting. So I thought this would be a really good chance to kind of show off why I think this is such a strong bird, and I think it is kind of underrated in the Wingspan community. So hopefully this will be a good opportunity to, show off why I like this bird so much, particularly in the early game. So it's got a really nice power for that early game, gaining a worm or a cherry from the bird feeder if there is one. And looking at this bird feeder already, this is kind of the perfect setup for the Indigo Bunting. There's some nice birds in the tray as well that pair particularly well with the bunting, so I think the crow and the snipe I've got my eye on. I did expect my opponent to take at least one of those there, but they played a bird instead. So I did get free choice, went with the crow in the end. I think that makes sense. I can, be able to get 2 food in my grasslands while also laying eggs. That's just really strong, and for me I think that's kind of the threshold at which I would ignore playing birds in the forest. If I can get 2 food a turn in my grasslands, that's going to be enough to allow me to play the birds I want. I think if I can only get 1 food a turn, be that from either the bunting or the crow or something like a hummingbird, that's where you're kind of on the limit of not being able to get enough food, and you might need to rely on playing some birds in your forest and taking some actions gaining food. But yeah, once you can reliably get 2 food in your grasslands, then I think you're really good to go there and don't need to worry too much about the forest. Now I think these next couple of turns really kind of show off the early game strength of the Indigo Bunting. So you see here I've played it, and then I'm able to lay eggs on my next turn, which is going to get me the eggs that I need to play the crow, but also the food at the same time. So I've just been able to do 2 things in a single turn, where normally, I might have had to lay eggs one turn and then gain food on the next, and then I could play the crow, whereas now I can save that turn, get the crow down earlier, and suddenly, I'm able to get that 2 food. I've got some nice wetland birds in my hand, particularly I think that merganser I'm going to look to get down. When you are running strong grasslands engines like this that are going to be laying lots of eggs, you need these kinds of birds that have lots of egg spaces. So the merganser with those 4 egg spaces, it's going to work with that second end of round goal as well. So yeah, that for me is a priority, and I can easily get it down. I can get the fish from the crow, and then it doesn't matter what food I take with the bunting, I can get that merganser down. Now I do still have my eye on the Wilson snipe in the tray, but also the hooded warbler as well. If I'm able to get lots of worms with that bunting power, then like I said before, I'm not going to be playing brown power birds in my forest. I can save those spaces for big point birds like the warbler, and I've got this forester bonus card as well, so really I want to be thinking about getting at least 3 of those birds in my forest, and the more points I can get out of those, the better. So I do get the merganser down here. I think it's kind of important just to at least get that first wetland bird down. It gives me the ability to discard eggs for the extra card, and when I'm laying eggs for most of my turns to get that food, I know that I'm going to have enough eggs really to be able to discard. Now my opponent did take the Wilson snipe there, which was a bit of a shame, but that said, if they are going to play that as well as the gallinule, then that's going to be giving me 2 free cards a turn. So whenever they're gaining cards, I'm going to get 2 free cards. I can probably not worry too much about building up much of my wetlands. Instead I can focus on getting more grassland birds down, and also importantly getting birds like the warbler down. So last turn of the round here, and my opponent does only have 2 eggs in the bowl spaces, so that's kind of another good strength of the Indigo Bunting in this scenario. It's allowed me to win that first end of round goal with the 3 egg spaces, which is so nice to have. Now this round 2 tray is a really good one for me. So the robin in particular, but also that Carolina wren. These are big egg space birds, but also that tuck and draw power in the grasslands paired with the food generation is a really nice combination. And even taking those 2 birds, revealing another couple of nice birds, so certainly got my eye on those. Again, I do kind of expect my opponent to take these, but in the end they do end up leaving both of them. So that means I can get this Carolina wren down on my next turn. It's going to let me draw cards, give me all those egg spaces, which are so useful for this end of round goal as well. And my grasslands is basically complete at this point. I know I've got 3 more spaces, and certainly those 2 tucking powers are going to be played as well. But that hummingbird, I think this is a really good combination to have with the bunting, because so often you'll find with the bunting that, you know, the main problem is that you can get stuck on the bird feeder and not be able to re-roll. So the bird power lets you gain a worm or a cherry if there is one in the bird feeder. So for this game so far, I've been quite fortunate with the bird feeder. There has always been that opportunity to, you know, either take the food that's there, or it's been all of the same type. So there's been a re-roll available. But you know, if you are solely relying on something like the bunting and you don't have enough of a forest to reset the bird feeder, but equally if you're against an opponent who doesn't have a forest that's going to be regularly resetting the bird feeder, you can find yourself getting stuck. But that's where the hummingbird comes in. You know, I can basically use the hummingbird as a way to not just gain food through the power, but also it's going to help reset that feeder. So there are going to be occasions in this game where the bird feeder is going to get stuck, where it's only fish or rodents or seeds, and I can't gain those with the bunting. But I think the hummingbird and the bunting pairing, as you'll see in this game, it's going to work so strongly. And like I said, with those tucking powers as well, they're going to get me points, but also I'm going to be able to cycle through the deck, you know, tuck some of these not so good birds that I've got in my hand. And you know, the more times my opponent is going to give me free cards like this, the more opportunities I'm going to get to tuck some of those cards and hopefully pick up some really strong birds from the tray or from the deck. Now I do have some difficult decisions here. There's 3 really nice birds in the tray that I'd probably like to take all of them. You know, certainly the warbler, just for that point value, is really nice. So that's definitely one I'm looking at. But also, again, you know, all of these birds I've got that are only going to eat worms, that's kind of what you should be looking for, I think, particularly with the bunting, where you're going to be reliably gaining worms from the feeder, you know, on a pretty regular basis. So yeah, certainly some, you know, good birds in my hand. I think the stilt is potentially an option I'll look at. Again, it's worms, but it's going to give me some extra cards. But I think as long as my opponent keeps giving me free cards, I'm not going to have to worry too much about that. It's a nice one to at least, you know, have up my sleeve should I need it at some point. So like I said, I think my grasslands is basically done. It's just about getting all the birds down now at this point. I know I've got 2 turns here, so I can look to play the hummingbird, and then really it's just about making sure I can get enough eggs in the right nest to win this end of round goal. I did already win the first end of round goal, but if I can win the second one as well and just sort of, you know, really make the most of the advantage and try and maximise the number of points I can get. You know, my opponent doesn't have the strongest grasslands. They haven't got anything built up yet. So when they lay eggs, they're only going to get 2, which does make it really difficult to compete for end of round goals like this. So yeah, I do consider laying eggs first here, but you know, you see this bird feeder. This is exactly the situation I was talking about where the hummingbird comes in useful. If I'd laid eggs there, I'd have just got that one food from the crow, and the bunting would not have been able to get any food. But now with that hummingbird, when I lay eggs, I can reset the feeder with the hummingbird first, and by the time it comes through to my bunting, there'll be a fresh bird feeder, and there's a really good chance of seeing a worm or a cherry in there for me to take. So like I said, I think at this point really my focus is just cycling through that grasslands. I know I'm going to get a lot of food from that. I've got plenty of egg spaces, so at the moment obviously I lay 4 eggs and then discard 1 from the crow, so really I'm only gaining, you know, a net of 3 eggs a turn, but obviously getting points through that tucking power as well. But what that means is that I can just keep laying eggs. It's going to give me plenty of turns to cycle through the deck. You know, I've got a few cards in my hand certainly that I'm thinking of tucking and, you know, hoping to draw something better, but equally I've got some really nice birds to play. So I think particularly those 2 warblers, the Bell's Vireo was also going to be quite nice. Now I will have to kind of be careful a little bit, just in terms of making sure I can meet the Forester bonus card. Obviously, if I can max that out, that's going to be really nice, and certainly that's why I'm looking at a bird like the Hermit Thrush. You know, 7 points on its own, but also, yeah, that's going to help towards the bonus card. So if I can really max that out, get 5 forest only birds down and get the 8 points, I'll be very happy by the end of the game. So you see a little sneak of the score there, already 37, plus the 5 end of round points to come as well. So 42 points for end of round 2, and basically a finished grasslands setup. It's really difficult to get this kind of setup so quickly. So I have been fortunate with some of the card draws. Obviously my opponent's been giving me some free cards and the occasional free worm from the Phoebe as well. But I think, being able to get this set up so quickly, it basically means that the rest of the game is kind of on rails. I don't really have too much decision making to do at this point. Like I said, it's basically just cycling through the cards in the deck. I've probably got enough at the moment where I probably won't need to think about drawing cards again, but even if I do, I've got that stilt that I can play. That's going to get me a couple of extra cards, and that's just a really nice bird to have because I can play it easily, like I said before, getting all these free worms from the Phoebe, but also that bunting power is going to get me lots of worms. And yeah, certainly, gaining 3 food a turn in that grasslands, I'm not going to be running short of food anytime soon. So unsurprisingly, going to lay eggs again here. Really at this point it is kind of just about building up those resources, both in the food, but also, tucking those cards and hopefully getting something better. I think this is kind of a good example of being patient. I see it so many times in games I play against other people, or watching some of the streamed games we've done before for tournament matches. I think sometimes players can run into the problem, particularly newer players, of rushing to get birds down when they don't really need to. So, particularly those warblers and the hermit thrush, I know I'm going to want to play them eventually, but really there's no rush in playing them now. I'm not going to gain anything out of it. They don't help towards the end of round goals. I'm not going to be activating any brown powers that they have, and I'm not running out of egg space. So for me, I think this is kind of a really key point to drive home. If you don't have to make a decision yet, then delay it as long as possible. Maybe I think something like the Viria might potentially play earlier, because if you can get a look at that bonus card, that is going to help guide you, work out, okay, which birds should I look to play to meet that bonus card. But really at the moment, I'm not looking at playing that because, like I said before, I want to try and max out this Forester bonus card. So if I can cycle through the deck, maybe I get lucky with some of those double birds, or maybe some other bonus card giving birds that are going to meet the Forester. So yeah, if I can put that decision off as long as possible, spend as many turns as possible cycling through the deck, and certainly, be patient and let my opponent give me free cards, like in that case, then I don't have to worry too much about making a decision. I can just keep laying eggs. I know it's going to reliably score me points. I can keep gaining food. And now I've got a bird like the Great Horned Owl that is going to help guide me as well. Okay, now I can start gaining rodents from the bird feeder through the hummingbird, and potentially also the crow as well. So yeah, really, in this case, I think this is a really good demonstration of being patient is going to allow you to see more information and make a better decision. So just skip forward a couple of turns here, just because it was mostly me laying eggs, cycling through to some not particularly interesting cards. But I think this is kind of the turn that really is showing off where being patient is so important. You can see all that food I've got, lots and lots of food. But here we go, that double bird, the kinglet, that's exactly what I'm looking for. So I now basically have all the forest birds I need. I can do the kinglet plus the warbler and the thrush and the great horned owl, and that's going to fill up my forest. I'm going to score lots of points. I'm going to use all this food that I've been slowly building up, and it's kind of coming at the right time. I've basically just been laying eggs until I've filled up my egg spaces. So I'm almost at that point. I've basically got one more turn where I can lay eggs, but sort of beyond that, I'm going to need to start playing birds. But like I said, I've got all this food. I've kind of been smart. I've saved up the food. I can play as many of these birds as I want, and free up some egg spaces. And then that's just going to give me even more time to lay eggs a few more times after that. and just give me even more time to make another decision. But yeah, you'll see here I do get a couple of them down, so certainly the kinglet and the warbler. That's just going to help get to that first threshold on the forester bonus. Cleared out a few egg spaces as well, so I can now lay eggs for at least another 2 or 3 more turns before I have to worry about filling up on those. It is kind of at that point now where I'm starting to think about discarding food for the extra eggs. I think certainly with these other birds that I can play that are going to free up even more egg spaces, I certainly won't need to worry about overfilling on those. And yeah, once I can be starting to get 5 eggs a turn plus those 2 tuck cards late in the game, that's really where you want to be focusing on most of your point scoring rather than resource gathering. I am at the point now where I can start thinking about skipping some of these powers, so certainly that hummingbird, but the crow as well. I've kind of got enough food to keep me going at least for now. Really that hummingbird, I think at this point it's only going to come in use if that bird feeder gets stuck and I can't gain food from the bunting. I'm not really too worried about giving too much extra food to my opponent, but if I can avoid it as much as possible, then I will always try to do that. I'm kind of looking at the food I've got, I'm working out, okay, I have got enough food to get down the birds I'm planning to play at the moment, but obviously, there are going to be other birds, like the Atlantic puffin, that I've got my eye on, so certainly just kind of calculating and thinking in my head, okay, if I do have to overpay, maybe some 2-for-1s to pay for that extra fish for the puffin, how much is that going to need, and how much of that am I going to need to gain, or can I keep skipping these powers and yeah, save the points, particularly in the case of the crow where I would have to discard an egg. So you see I do get the puffin down, quite expensive puffin. Quite an unfortunate bonus card draw. Rodentologist is okay because I was planning on playing that horned owl anyway, so it's basically 2 points, but yeah, I was kind of hoping for better. Something like Omnivore Specialist would have been nice, Viticulturalist would have been nice. I think any time you're playing a bonus card bird like the puffin late in the game like this, you kind of want to have in mind how many bonus cards there are that are going to be worth points for you. But to be honest, with the puffin, that was still a 7-point play, even without the extra 2 from the bonus card. So yeah, it's still a nice big point play. And I've now worked out, okay, I've got the food to play that horned owl and the hermit thrush. I can max out my existing forester bonus card, but also obviously that horned owl is going to get me a couple more from the rodentologist. So yeah, pretty straightforward. Last round here, I think. If I can win this last end of round goal as well, then that's going to be a clean sweep. I want the 3rd one. Just from that grasslands, I'd set up so much more quickly than my opponent. But really, thanks to double birds like the kinglet, but just the kind of sheer volume of birds I've been able to play, thanks to all this food I've been generating in my grasslands, it's kind of not even really going to be a contest for this last end of round goal as well. So yeah, like I said, kind of straightforward couple of turns, discard the food, I know I can skip the crow. I do get another bonus card draw there right at the last second in the woodpecker, so I will be looking to play that, and I've still got those same bonus cards in mind. I'm kind of thinking, can I get lucky here? I was quite unlucky, I feel, with that puffin, but if you give yourself 2 rolls of the dice or 2 chances at drawing from that bonus card deck, then certainly increase your chances. So do get the woodpecker down, and there they both are, the Omnivore Expert and the Viticulturalist. So yeah, would have liked to keep them both. Unfortunately, you can only keep one, but yeah, anytime you're getting a 7-point bonus card late in the game like the Viticulturalist, then I think you can be happy, and certainly being able to max out that Forester bonus card at the same time, I know I'm going to be scoring a lot of points from bonus cards here. So as the scores begin to count up, I am feeling pretty confident. I think really just at this point in my head, it's just a question of what is the margin going to be. I know I've scored a lot of bird points, like I was saying just now. I know I've got a good number of bonus card points, but really those end of round goals as well, absolutely smashed those, got a lot of points. And just look at the eggs here, my opponent only getting 1, but just from all those eggs I've managed to get, and all these tuck cards at the end as well, it gets me over 130 points, which is a massive score. You know, we don't see those kinds of scores too often, particularly without birds like the raven and the killdeer and the Franklin's gull. You know, I think being able to score as highly like this, for me, it's all down to that Indigo Bunting. You know, being able to get that down so early in the game, it got me off to such a quick start with all that extra food, and yeah, just really helped accelerate my game and get all those birds and all those points. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.